Welcome to another episode, everyone. The day Big U and the Rolling 60's crashed out on the Nation of Islam and Dr. Khalid Abdul Muhammad. Rest in peace to that brother. Things almost got extremely ugly. It was about to go bad. Big U speaks about how he came across the name Hannibal. And it's not the Hannibal that many of you think that it is. This is Kev Mac, my brother Kev Mac videos. Go check him out. Check this out. This is history at the end of the day.
Big U, or AKA Eugene Henley.
Hannibal,
anybody, a whole lot of that. Hannibal was a name that was given to me by Captain Malik of the Nation of Islam. Well, this might have been about 87, 88. We was all in the hood, and we had heard that the Grape Streets was coming to the Nation of Islam temple on Western, was Temple 27 on Western and 46. And at the time, we was kind of like, you know, having skirmishes with the Grape Streets and all the dudes, all the Compton and Watts at World on Wheels Skating. So when we heard they was coming over there to meet with the Nation of Islam, we got together, the call went out, and at the time, this was before there was it was pagers only. This was before there was cell phones and all this different communication that they have now. So when we got the call, it went throughout the hood. So we was probably about 70, 80 deep. All the homies rode to 46 and Western and jumped out. So the brothers from Nation of Islam was like, man, y'all can't do that over here now. Y'all not gonna disrespect us and have these cats in our neighborhood. You know what I mean? So we was at a standoff. And so at the time, Captain Malik, who was it? Captain Malik. It was Khalid Muhammad, rest in peace. This was when I first met Khalid Muhammad. Captain Shahid and Malik. And they was running the mosque at the time. And they came out and they was talking to us and they was like, you know, who running this? And I'm like, we ain't got nobody running it. It's just that right now, you know, I'm the one you talking to right now. And so from that point, they was hunting me down after we came to understanding that wasn't gonna be no good look for them to go in there, and not in our neighborhood, you know. So they ended up not going in. We ended up coming to a medium later on. We met with them later on with the Nation of Islam. And so they started pursuing me real hard. And I had already been studying Islam. I was kind of raised in it.
Yeah, I take it that might have went pretty bad had they went up in there, or had the Nation of Islam said, no, well, they can come in here anyway, and had the Grape Street said, well, we going in here anyway. And they had a standoff with the Nation of Islam, basically. They had a standoff with the Nation of Islam, a standoff with the Grape Streets, and if they went in there and they're in their neighborhood, and it went up, as they said, they have a little skirmishes going on at the time. They were beefing a little bit at World on Wheels. Of course, World on Wheels was very famous at this time, a little skating ring where the Rolling 60's were known to frequent, and there would be many incidents going down at World on Wheels. Good thing that those individuals didn't go in there, because it probably would have got bad for everybody, for both sides. He said they were 70 or 80 deep. The Rolling 60's pushed up there 70 or 80 deep. Yeah, certainly they had weapons and everything else. It could have got ugly.
Islam with my uncles from a baby. Well, I actually was raised in Islam from a baby. And so it was natural for me to just kind of still connect back to it. So going down the line, Malik Muhammad gave me the name Hannibal. So that's where the name Hannibal came from.
So it's based off the North African general?
Yeah, it's based off of General Hannibal of Carthage. And if you know the history of General Hannibal, he was the last African to ever challenge Rome and challenge any standing white nation. And so that's where he got that from. So that was actually a given name, Hannibal was.
The streets thought you was named after the dude on the movies that was people's faces off and eating, bro.
Yeah, that was crazy. A lot of people think that's where the name Hannibal came from, or even the semblance, but no, that's not where that came from.
Was there ever a little Hannibal?
No, there's never been a little Hannibal. Never. It was a lot of people tried. Like there was a lot of people wanted to be Lil U and all the other stuff, but it was I understood how hard a task it would be for somebody to even try to carry that name. So the ones that tried to carry it, it wasn't that I didn't want them to or I disliked them. It was a lot to carry right now. It's even hard for my sons to even try to be related to the name. So they kind of put a twist on it, and that's where you hear them say Huey instead of Lil U or Baby U. It's more like they put the Huey on it. They Lil Huey and Baby Huey and stuff like that. But the name was it was a lot that went with it. And then what we was going through in the early 80s and the 70s is different than what they going through today in these days and time. I just turned 50.
Well, yeah, it'd be real hard, to carry that name. I know individuals like that. Of course, there are big names in every hood, really. At least a big name to that hood. But of course, many hoods have names that go far beyond their area. And when you have a name like that, then yeah, the individual who comes up behind you, it's like Michael Jordan's son. He started playing basketball, and everyone is comparing him to his dad, of course. And in comparison, you're trash. So it's going to be hard for someone to come in and fill his father's shoes, if you will, or fill the shoes of someone who carries a certain reputation. So some individuals just stay away from those names, because if you're not putting in as much work as that individual, if you're not carrying the name on, taking the name to another level or whatever, then you're always going to be a failure in many people's eyes. And you're helping to sully up the reputation and the name of the individual that built the name. If you are no good, if you end up taking that name and then you don't live up to it. So many individuals really just stay away from those kind of names because there's too much pressure on them to try to live up to the name, to try to at least do the same that the individual who made the name had done, or go beyond that. There's pressure to even go beyond, to outdo him, just in order to be anywhere on his level. So some people just stay away.
Years old last November. We had a big party, we had a big shindig, all the homies came out, the ones that could make it. It was fun. I'm happy to make it.
So where were you born at, bro?
I was actually born on 81st and Hoover. That's what's funny. I was born at 81st and Hoover. I went to Limey Elementary School. My uncle bought a house right here in Arlington in 70. I think it was 1970. He was the first one to come west. Because at the time I was born, there wasn't a lot of blacks being able to come past Western. And if you was coming past Western, it was problems. So my uncle was the first one. He was working he had got a job working at 7 Up. And then he bought a house on Arlington in like 70. I want to say for sure it was 70, not 69. And so when he came west, he bought some duplexes. And so that my uncle moved in one side and my auntie moved in the other one. And so it was kind of where my mother and them being from the South, from Mississippi, it was the one place that everybody could come. And then with Van Ness Park being right across the street from the park, we would have like family gatherings, like every Sunday or Saturday, being all them from the South, we would all meet and we'd come to the park, and the park was right across the street. It was even before they had this big gate that they have now. It was a little bitty gate you could just run across, and Jack in the Box was right there. We would run across from there, and our whole family would be here.
The different lanes in the Hoovers never tried to recruit you?
No, well, I was so strong, it wasn't even a question where I was gonna be from. It was like I said, 13 brothers, I had 10 uncles. And it was 12 of us that was first cousins. And Slim and
the whole family is a whole breeding ground. Shit, you got 13 brothers? Big, you got 13 brothers? I did not know that. 13 brothers? Hell, they all low-key as hell. 10 uncles? He just said he had 13 brothers. Does he mean that literally? That's not to count with the sisters. Shit, what, he got 20 siblings and then 10 uncles? Apparently they all from 60s.
Big Slim and Little Slim lived in one duplex. Benzo and Capone lived in the other duplex next door to each other. My other cousin Tim and Gary lived in the 50s, and I had I had more cousins, Alvin and Cent them. They lived right around the corner, so my whole family was right here. It wasn't no question I was gonna be from this side. I mean, no matter where I lived at. Her cousin was Alvin. He was the first. He's the first American to ever win a Kempo or a fighting title outside the United States. He was the first one. He won a full contact title, Alvin Prouder, at 17 in Japan. He flew from Japan, went over there and won it, first time ever. So martial arts been in our life since I've been taking martial arts since I was 8 years old. We first took it from BKF. No, we actually started. BKF started right after when Muhammad and the rest of the brothers, who was Steve Sanders at the time, started. We was going on Crenshaw. We was on Crenshaw on 43rd, and that's where the first school was. And then BKF just continued to grow from there, and it's always been a part of our life. It's always been martial arts.
So did you attend Horseman?
Yeah, I went from. My road was. First elementary school was Longmere Elementary School. That was when we stayed over there. Then from there, I think in the second and third grade, second all the way to the 5th grade, we was at 59th Street School. And then from 59th Street School, in the 6th grade, I went to 111. And then from 111, we checked in the Horseman. At Horseman, I went to Horseman from the 7th grade to the 8th grade. So I went to Horseman in 79. And so 79 was when we first, that's when the A-Trays and the Rolling 60s used to still get along in 79. Actually, I was the first person to get jumped by the A-Tray gangsters in 1979, walking home from school from, because I used to live on 108th and Figueroa, so we caught the bus from Western and from Western and Florence, we catch the bus to Figueroa, and then from Figueroa, catch the bus up to my mother's house. I mean, on 108th and Figueroa. So I think what was it, 79, it's when Mumbles, my big homie Mumbles had got into it with Boosie over some stuff that went over with some females. And they had got into it that over the weekend. So come Monday, when we got to school, I'm only in the 7th grade. We hearing like the 60s and A-Trays supposed to fight. And so we hearing that it's supposed to be a fight in the front of school. So Mom dropped me off, all of us get together, we run to the back of the school. We run to the back of school, was no fight. We run to the front of school, was no fight. So basically it went like that for like all day long. You had a bunch of dudes. We was the little Rolling 60s, Red and them, Chili Red and all them was the little A-Tray gangsters, and we had like maybe 4 or 5 dudes from Hoover that was going to Horseman at the time. And I think it wasn't until maybe that Wednesday that we actually did have a fight that happened with the homies and the A-Trays. So after that fight, that Thursday, I was walking home from school. Me and my older sister, and me and my older sister and her friend was walking home from school. And so, who was it? Sidewinder, Gangsta Brown. Opie was on the bike, because Opie was the first one to steal on me. We walked from school, so Opie get off on me.
And Sidewinder is, of course, the co-founder of the A-Tray Gangsters. Sidewinder, this is who he's referring to. So, of course, he's going deep in the archives. Back in the days, really, again, alluding to when the war started, how the war started. We know that Monster Cody said that the war had started in 1979, in September of 1979, between the A-Tray Gangsters and the Rolling 60s, over, basically a woman, someone that did something to one of the dude's sisters. That turned into a killing that really was not supposed to happen, and so forth and so on. But Big U said he was the first one to get jumped by the dude. Horseman is a dangerous school. It was a dangerous school at that time, and really the Rolling 60s was going to Horseman. And, like in LA, you have certain venues, certain entities that are historic for this reason right here, for or certain gangs have dominated these certain spots. There are certain schools that certain gangs used to go to. And you couldn't even really go to that school if you were not from that gang or an ally of that gang, and particularly if you were in opposition to that gang. You couldn't even go and get an education. You had to go to somewhere else. Hell, I checked in Bethune, where all the East Coasters were at, for all of 2 days. And then I had to get out of there.
Now, granted, I'm a little dude. I'm only in the 7th grade. I'm really not even in the shit like that at the time. So when Opie get off on me, I get down on Opie. First, Opie and them couldn't fuck with me. I mean, couldn't match me hand to hand. Like I told you already, squabbling was what we do. Fighting was what we did. And Opie was way littler than I was anyway. So Opie get off on me. I maul Opie, he on the bike. And then Chili Red, Big Chili Red. It was Big Chili Red, Gangsta Brown. Gangsta Brown them never did nothing, but it was more all the dudes who was, I was in the 7th grade, them dudes like 8th and 9th grade going, because you still went to high school in the 9th grade at that time. So we all in the streets fighting, and I'm trying to chill my sister. My sister making it worse, because she won't just, I'm telling her like, I'm squabbling with all these dudes. They getting the best of me, I'm by myself. So I'm telling my sister, come on, she's still arguing and like, I'm like, man, she making it worse. Really, like, let's go. And can't leave her. She arguing with these dudes, what girls do, and I'm squabbling with these dudes. So they get the best of me, lump me up a little bit. So I go home. I'm walking back. So I walk, instead of catching the bus going home, we turn around and we walk back to the hood. So now my part of the neighborhood at the time is I live on the other side of the tracks. So basically, when we walk past Horseman coming back, I see Mad Dog and them gambling and shooting dice. Mad Dog, JD, and a couple of the homies. I was telling them what happened, and they get up in arms. They run up that way. I'm like, man, fuck, I'm going to go get my homies. Just we from north side of the track. So at the time, it wasn't really a difference, but it was like on this side of the tracks, we didn't really know no A-Tray gangsters. Like, we grew up knowing VNGs. It was kind of a separation. And so when I came back and told Mump and all, Big Mumpy, Big Roach, J-Bone, and all the homies from our side, what had happened, me, C-Dog, Sean Cook, and all us, now we all grew up and went to Horseman together. We all grew up on this side of the track. So the homies was like, we going back up there. So come that Thursday, come that Friday when the homies came up to Horseman, we came with a totally different attitude and a different mentality. So it wasn't like the homies that came from our side of the tracks didn't have no relationship with their trades. Like, we didn't know them, we didn't have no relationship with them, we didn't have nothing. And that's to my homies who didn't ever go to Horseman. So when we pull up at Horseman that Friday, we beating everything down. So the homies come, we don't care where you from. The homies is just on one. Like, y'all, y'all done got on the homies. And so basically, it was totally different. The dudes who didn't know it was coming, got it. The dudes who didn't know what size you was from, got it. If you was going that way, we was giving it to you, period, point blank. So that kind of set in motion what later happened on with Tyrone getting killed. So I think so I got suspended because of that incident. When I came back to school, that probably about, I got spent like 2 days. We came back to school that Wednesday. That's when all the big homies had got into it. That's when John L, all the dudes from A-Tray and all the dudes from 60's that met. And they was like, well, the little homie and them feel like they still wanna get some stuff off their chest. Cause I didn't get to get the dudes I wanted to get. So we had a meeting to meet the A-Trays, to fight the A-Trays. A-Trays and the 60's was gonna fight at the, behind the dentist. It used to be a dentist office in the back on Florence and Western. So we all went up there to go fight. And they was like, most of them dudes like, man, I ain't trying to get down with him. So John L was like, nah, man, just pick who you want to fight. And if niggas don't want to fight, just fuck when I'm up. So anyway, make a long story short, I'm beating these dudes up, and the homies like, man, nah. So Slim them all want to get in, and we all getting in. So every Friday, so then the police, the security came, and so every Friday that became like our routine. We'd meet up there and fight. The A-Trays, 9-0s, the Hoovers. Every Friday we would meet at the same spot and fight. So then that one Friday, that's when Tyrone got killed. We was supposed to meet, and that's when that infamous night. Infamous day that happened. That was March.
Yeah, that's what really just, stopped everything. You can really, if we're following along, you can trace the gun violence then back to that incident with Tyrone being killed. You can really trace it back to that, apparently. Not necessarily the gun violence in L.A. or the gun violence from all of the gangs, but at least the gun violence between the A-Trade gangsters and the Rolling 60s, because as Big U has alluded to here, they were just meeting up to fight every day. That's crazy, right? That's some tradition, these gangs meeting up to just beat on each other somewhere behind the building. And that's, instead of meeting up to go and have lunch, they got a meeting every Friday. Instead of a business meeting, they got a meeting every Friday to pummel each other. But okay, this is how it was back then. The gangs were just were sort of nascent. They're just coming along. And but what I take out of this really is the fact that these gangs were fighting at first. They were fighting. They were fighting every day. Then they started fighting every week. And even when Big U explained, when all of the Rolling 60s had went up to the school and started beating people up, that's what they were doing, beating people up, fighting. No story about they opened fire, started shooting people in the head, started killing each other. They met up to fight. Hoover, 60s, 9-0s, A-Trade gangsters, but there were no killings. They met up every Friday to squabble up. Something these dudes ain't doing now. They can't fight. They don't know how to fight. They're not trying to fight. They got the sticks. But they were squabbling it until someone came out and pulled the trigger, took down Tyrone. And then now you open that door, now the gun violence is on. But before that gun violence, they were just squabbling, man. Jeez.
March 3rd, that was March 3rd, 1979. And if you transfer March 3rd backwards, that's the 8th month, third day that the homie Tyrone got killed.
Yeah, and people still remember that. They remember that acutely, that what happened with Tyrone. Of course, that's their homie. And that's what really started the war. Before then, they were beefing and fighting or whatever, having little skirmishes at World on Wheels and fighting at Horace Man or whatever. Every gang that is in proximity to one another were really doing this growing up. But we're not using, again, all of these permanent destructive weapons to take one another out until someone opened that door, and then it went all downhill from there, of course. But what we want to do is get it back on track, put the weapons back down. I've said it many times. Here on the Inside Story with me, Damian Porter. Please subscribe to the channel if you have not done so. Also, go and subscribe to my other channel, The Unwoke Culture. Someone was asking in the comments, did you say work or unwork? I can't find it. It's in the description. The Unwoke, sleep woke, the Unwoke Culture. I don't mention it too much over here on this channel because I don't want to be pandering and begging for y'all to go over there and subscribe. I'm over there working. I'm gonna get it out of the mud. I'm gonna get it from working. I'm gonna let my content speak for itself, not because I'm over here asking people to go and give me a head. I gotta work for it. I gotta put in the work. I gotta earn my viewers. I gotta earn my subscribers. Maybe a whole different crowd over there, even though I think some of you will want to go over there. That's why I'm mentioning it here and there, because some people say, man, you didn't tell us about this other channel, or, I would have been over here or whatever. So I do put it out there now and then. Other than that, I wanted to get this audience, from the work that I put in. But getting back to this situation here, yeah, I mean, it's a vicious cycle, of course, that, and it's just been so many deaths over this war that started over something trivial, apparently, as many wars do. But by the time it's all said and done, there's nothing trivial or minute about it. Many people have been destroyed. over these wars. Many black people. We want this to change at this point. Shout out to Big U. Shout out to Kev Mac videos. Good work per normal, brother. We'll see what happens with Big U's situation. Of course, a lot of sense come out since these interviews about some of the things that he was allegedly involved in LA. He's been accused of, he's been locked up for it. We'll see how the case plays out. Till then, withhold your judgment. No one really knows. He is accused of some very sinister things, nonetheless, but none of us are perfect. Don't judge, lest ye be judged. None of us are perfect. So let's hold off and see what happens with the situation. But let's try to stop the wars. Anyway, this war has been going on since 1979. 1979. Man, damn. The war has been going on since 1979, bro. Jeez. You think at some point it's time to put an end to it, man. For real. But that's everyone that's at war. And a lot of these wars from these hoods have been going on for a very long time. These wars ain't just started, they've been going on. A lot of people have lost their lives and are in prison for life over these wars. We want to stop this stuff at some point. It's going to continue the destruction. Man, hell no. Stay safe and stay free, people.